Will Anderson has 40 tackles for loss for the Houston Texans. Also, when it comes to sacks, he's already in the top 10 there too. Welcome to Just the Stats NFL Top 10s for Friday. Looking forward to talking about some variety of issues today. Not issues, I should say topics. That's a more appropriate word. But I'm Ernie Jennings, your host. So we'll look at the Thursday night game, and that was quite a game. Wow. Started off almost immediately like Buffalo was going to run away with it, and then it just completely changed. We'll talk about that game. We'll talk about some teams in the NFL where they have players already in the top 10 all time for their teams for season stats. Most of them positive, one of them not positive, very negative category. And then we'll look at just a couple, and we'll round that out the day with a couple of topics on teams, 2 team categories, one on offense, like highest scoring teams, and then on defense, who's the sack leaders as a team. So we'll look at those, and that'll be a wrap for Friday, and we'll be looking forward to some good football. Wow, we're going to have a lot of football. We got this weekend, Sunday, Monday, and then Thursday there'll be some extra games, Friday a game. So we're going to have a lot of football in the next week and a half, and I'm looking forward to every game. So with that, let's get started, and let's talk about that Friday night game. I mean, last night's game, not Friday night game. Thursday night game between the Buffalo Bills and the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans won this game 23-19. What a game. Like I said, initially, Buffalo comes right out, goes right down the field. James Cook breaks away for a 45-yard run, and the Buffalo Bills are out. Should have been 7-0, but it's 6-0, and that's a key, right? That extra point in the very first drive that Buffalo had is going to cost them. So anyway, the Buffalo Bills are up 6-0. Texans manage a field goal, and then another field goal later in the second quarter by the Bills. But initially, the way they were moving the ball, you just thought this is not going to be a problem. But then in that second quarter drive, when they got close, Houston started to turn it on. And their defense, I'm talking about. Wow. Their defense was just incredible. Interception. They ended the day with 2 interceptions, a fumble recovery. There was a catch by Shakir. He caught it. Ball's knocked out of his hands. And Houston recovers it. That was a huge turnover as well. So I think the turnovers, 3 turnovers by the Buffalo Bills in this game, and for Houston, no turnovers. Davis Mills, the quarterback for the Houston Texans, nothing special there, really. He had 2 touchdown passes, but that was all set up by the Houston defense. So the turnovers by Buffalo and the 8 sacks, they got to Josh Allen 8 times. That's incredible. You do not expect to see Josh Allen sacked like that, but the Houston defense was relentless, just after him the whole night. It was incredible to watch, and we'll look at some of the numbers that come out of this game because of it. But in this game, Josh Allen, 24 for 34 for 253 yards. That doesn't seem bad. But then 2 interceptions. That was key. And sacked 8 times for 70 yards. It literally knocked him out of range a couple of times, forced him into issues. This game was a crazy game because, like I said, halftime, Houston had pulled ahead, and they were winning 20-16. They get a field goal, 23-16, and then basically they just tried to hang on. They could not do much with the ball when they had it, really nothing at all, and they kept giving it back to Buffalo. Buffalo got a field goal to make it 23-19, and then had opportunities to try to score, but just could not do it. it was an exciting game because it was getting late in the game. It was 4th and 27 for Buffalo. 4th and 27. They make a play, they get some 30, 40 yards, and they stay in the game. You think it's over. Yeah, it was 44-yard. It was kind of a trick play with Khalil Shakir and another player. One player caught it, tossed it back to him in the middle of the field, and he kept on going. But a 4th and 27, you do not expect a team to make that. They made it, and they kept getting closer, but then the sacks came in again. It was something to see. Allen just kept getting sacked. It's incredible. The Houston defense was really played tough. Like I said, Josh Allen, 24 for 34, 253 yards, 2 interceptions, sacked 8 times. Davis Mills, 16 for 30 for 153 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And really, in the second half, Houston couldn't do much on offense, and Buffalo just kept trying to get the ball back and move down the field. They just couldn't get it done. But they had the ball enough times to do it. James Cook, 17 carries, 116 yards, 1 touchdown. Now, one of those was a 45-yard run, and he had another long run later in the game, too. He also caught the ball 3 times for 13 yards, so he had a pretty decent game. Josh Allen, 5 carries, 20 yards. One of those was a 14-yard scramble. On 3rd and long again, it was another play. This was one of the plays where the relentless rushing of Houston backfired on them. Anderson came up kind of toward the middle, which gave Allen the opportunity to go around the outside, and he ran off for first. It was like 3rd and 13, and he got 14 yards. So kept the drive alive for them at that point. Now, Khalil Shakir, 8 catches, 110 yards, but he did have a fumble, which was a costly fumble there. That was a leading receiver for Buffalo. And then for Houston, as far as rushing goes, Woody Mark, 16 carries, 74 yards. Not bad. But in the second half, nothing too long. You know, it was just basically the Houston was trying to do what they could and not make a mistake, run the clock, and it was just difficult for him to do much of anything. Nico Collins, 3 catches, 55 yards in this game, only 3 targets. Now, Christian Kirk had 5 catches for 54 yards and a touchdown, and Jaden Higgins also had a receiving touchdown. So, like I said, nothing too special there. It was the defense. Like I said, 8 sacks, 11 tackles for loss. Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter showed up big time. Daniel Hunter, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. Will Anderson, 2.5 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. Those are your leaders on defense. As far as Buffalo, really no sacks, and only 3 tackles for loss in that game. All right, so let's look at some of the numbers in this game. The first one for Buffalo, James Cook had a touchdown, like I said, in the first drive, 45-yard run, which gave him now 28 rushing touchdowns. He was in a tie for 7th with Travis Henry with 27, so he is now all alone in 7th place with 28 rushing touchdowns. Next up for him is Ray Carlton, who played in the 60s, who has 29 rushing touchdowns. So I fully expect to see him pass him probably their next game. They'll get a break here. They won't play till next Sunday. So I expect to see that happen. Also, at the same time, James Cook is moved into the top 10 all-time in all touchdown categories. Like I said, he had 28 rushing touchdowns. He's got a total now of 36 touchdowns because he had one more. He's tied Joe Cribbs for 10th all-time for the Buffalo Bills in touchdowns. and that's 36. So Joe Cribbs and James Cook both have 36 all touchdowns, receiving, rushing. Cribbs played in the 80s. Next up for next up for James Cook is both Fred Jackson, who played from 2007 to 2014, and Stephon Diggs, who played in the early 20s, who's now with their dreaded rival, the New England Patriots, but they had 37, so he needs one more to catch both of them, which I fully expect him to do even next week. James Cook scores a fair amount of touchdowns normally, so he's jumped onto this all touchdowns category for the Bills. Josh Allen right now is third. He didn't have any touchdowns. He's got 77 touchdowns. He's 10 behind both Andre Reed and Thurman Thomas at 87. They have 87 apiece for the all-time record for the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen now holds the record for most rushing touchdowns by a quarterback. All right. Next up for Houston, the Houston Texans, Will Anderson. And as far as tackles for loss, had 2 tackles for loss in this game. He was tied for 7th with Antonio Smith. He's now in 7th all by himself with 40 tackles for loss. Next up for him is Brian Cushing, who played from 2009 to 2017. He's got 42, so just 2 more. He'll catch him. 3 more, he catches D'Amico Ryans, who played in the 2006 to 2011. He had 43. That's as far as he's going to get this season, to 5th place. And he'll get there at some point, whether it's 1 week, 2 weeks, or even 3 weeks. I'm sure he'll be there. Because in 4th is Mario Williams, who played the same time as D'Amico Ryans. He has 64, though. And Jadeveon Clowney also has 64. So Will Anderson won't catch them this year. It'll have to be next year, probably late next year if he does catch him. But 40 already. He's only been with the team since 2023, Will Anderson, that is. But Will Anderson has 40 tackles for loss for the Houston Texans. Also, when it comes to sacks, he's already in the top 10 there, too. He went into the game in 6th place. Danielle Hunter was in 8th. With 21, and Will Anderson went into the game with 26. So you got these 2 players. Now, Danielle has only been on the team since 2024, and they're both already in the top 10. This defense could be something to see between them and Denver's defense. Huge on the sack department. We'll look at that later. But Danielle Hunter with 2 sacks now has 23, which ties him for 7th place with Jonathan Grenard, who was with the team just 2 years ago. So now they both have 23. Will Anderson jumped up quite a bit. He had 2.5 sacks, so he now has 28.5. He passed Antonio Smith, who had 27.5. So now he's 28.5. Next up for him is Jadeveon Clowney with 29. So probably even next week, all he needs is a half a sack to tie Jadeveon Clowney for 4th place already on this list. And again, this is one of those things where that's as far as he's going to go this year, is 4th, because Mario Williams has 53 sacks. That's the next number for 3rd place. 3rd place is 53. So Will Anderson, we'll see where he ends the season. I'm sure it'll be at least a 30. It's going to make it a hard sell for him to catch Mario Williams next year. He could, depending how far he can get. He has a chance, but he's got 28.5 sacks now, and which, like I said, puts him in 5th place by himself. Those 2 players, they were incredible. I mean, the whole defense was just all over Josh Allen. You don't see that. They did such a good job of penning him in. And if you watch the game, you just saw it. Josh Allen would run one way and he'd see something. He'd try to make a U-turn and go the other way, and too late. Either the guy caught him or there was somebody waiting as soon as he turned around. Either way, he just couldn't make any headway against this defense, very rarely. It was a crazy game, I tell you, when you go back to that game. Just some of the plays that Buffalo did make, like that 4th and 27, 3rd and 13, plays that you don't expect them to make the first down, and they do. So they tried their hardest. There was a play early on, first half. I thought Josh Allen was done when he got tackled from behind by Anderson, and it wasn't a sack because he was able to get over the line of scrimmage, but he only gained a yard, so that was almost another sack for Will Anderson. But Josh Allen had to come out of the game. He was like shaking. I mean, I don't know exactly what happened. I don't know if he had a severe stinger or what, but he was able to get up and come and was out, and then was back on the field for the next series. So I'm not sure what exactly happened there, but he got beat up pretty bad. He was shaking his wrist even late in the second half too, after some sacks. So he'll probably be thrilled with a extra few days off to recover. Obviously not thrilled about the loss, but thrilled about the extra days off. Now, this game was a huge game for both teams. This was the opportunity for Houston to stay in the playoffs. They really needed this win. They are now 6-5, only a half a game behind the Jaguars. So this puts the pressure now on the Jaguars to beat the Arizona Cardinals to stay a game up on Houston. Now, Houston and Jaguars have already played twice, so they're not going to play each other. But Houston still has to play the Indianapolis Colts twice. So they needed to stay within reach of them. Now, Colts have a tough game against the Chiefs. So this could come down to a tight three-way battle, depending on how the Colts do. They're 8-2, so obviously they have the upper hand. But if they lose to the Chiefs, Jaguars win, they're only a game back. Houston would be 2 back. And Houston still plays the Colts twice. Jaguars play the Colts twice. So the Colts have some tough games coming up. I mean, between the Chiefs, the Texans twice, and the Jaguars twice. And, obviously for the Colts, they're hoping for at least a split between the 2 games with the Jaguars and the 2 games with Texans. If they come out splitting those games, they'll stay in a lead there. All right. So, and for Buffalo, they were trying to stay in contact with the Patriots. They needed to win that game to stay, within a game's reach. Now they're 2 games back, and the Patriots are playing, I believe, the Bengals, which they're favored to win, put it that way, almost by a touchdown favorites. But you never know. I mean, we've seen some crazy games, but if the Patriots win, they'll be a good 2.5 games up on the Bills with only 6 to go. 5 for them. They'll be 10-2. So really puts them in good position if they can win. Now, if you're Miami Dolphins, you're thrilled that Buffalo lost. Gives you a little bit, they've won 2 in a row. Miami has. So, keeps their hopes alive, keeps the Cincinnati Bengals' hopes alive. If they can beat the Patriots, they go to 4-7. Now, for the Jaguars, they're 7th seed. They win this game, they jump from 7th seed to 5th seed in the playoffs. So, big game for them. All right, we'll move away from all that, and let's look at some of these teams that already have players who have made it into the top 10 numbers here. The first one we'll look at is the Los Angeles Rams. We've got a couple of players there, but Matthew Stafford, in passing touchdowns for the Rams, holds the record with 41. He's tied actually with Kurt Warner. Both of them had 41. Kurt Warner in 1999, Matthew Stafford in 2021. That's the team record for the Los Angeles Rams. Well, Matthew Stafford, with his 27 touchdown passes already, is now in 9th. He needs 1 to catch Jared Goff to move into 8th, and 2 to catch Jim Everett to move into 7th, and 3 to catch Vince Veracamo to move into 6th. And I'm only saying that because he's had more than one game with 3 touchdown passes, and he's had a game with 4, I believe. So, but he's definitely had more than one game with 3. So he could easily move up a couple spots here. But he's the first one we're looking at as far as players already in the top 10 for the season. And we're only into game, 11 for them. The Rams have only played 10 games. So he's averaging 2.7 touchdowns a game, almost 3 a game. So it's very possible that he can move from 9th to 6th this Sunday. Now on the same team, at the benefactor of all those touchdown passes primarily has been Davante Adams. Now for the Rams in receiving touchdowns, he's in 7th place already with 10. He's tied Cooper Kupp and Torrey Holt twice actually did it with 10 touchdown passes. Torrey Holt is on this list, top 10 3 times. Cooper Kupp is on it twice. Now, Crazy Legs Elroy Hirsch, way back 1951. That's how old this record is. What is that, 74 years? This record's been held by Elroy Hirsch of 17 receiving touchdowns. That's amazing. I don't know of a receiving category that's that old. 1951 was 17. So Davante Adams has 10. Next up for him is one of those Torrey Holt's and Isaac Bruce. Both had 12. So he's going to need a couple to move up into 5th. So he only needs 7 touchdowns. He's averaging 1 a game right now. That would put him in a tie with Elroy Hirsch. So, they play 10 games. He's got 10 touchdowns. So it's very possible for him to catch, at least tie Elroy Hirsch. He'd have to exceed his numbers by 1 to actually pass Elroy Hirsch. And, when you see records like that for the Rams, they're just a good team. They're 8-2. It kind of explains the seasons that they've had and why I consider Matthew Stafford one of the primary MVP candidates this year. He's got 27 touchdown passes, 2 interceptions. That's amazing. And he's up there in the yardage. Not number 1, but he's up there. He's leading his team quite well. Just been having a very outstanding year. Now, on the negative side for quarterbacks, Cam Ward. Quarterback sacked record for the Tennessee Titans. All-time quarterback sacks, Cam Ward is now in 5th right now with 41. He's already in 5th place for the season with 41. That's not something you want to see, as a player. And they've only played 10 games, so he's averaging, 4 sacks a game. He should not have any problem breaking the record. Ryan Tannehill holds the record. He set it in 2021 with 47. Him and Warren Moon. Warren Moon, way back in 1984, also had 47 sacks. So he only needs 6 more times to be sacked, and he'll break the record, or at least tie it. And being the fact that he's getting sacked on an average of 4 times a game, within 2 more games, he should be number 1 all time in this category. Like I said, not a category you want to be number 1 in. Warren Moon's on this list 3 times. He was sacked. He led the team 3 times. Marcus Mariota is on it twice. So Cam Ward is looking to top the list this year. He needs a lot of help next year. That team does. They should have a good draft pick. Right now, Tennessee Titans are, the worst team in the NFL, only 1 win. So they do have the number 1 pick. If Cam Ward's their guy, they could really maybe have quite a haul in the draft, being that they could give up that pick to somebody who needs a quarterback and maybe get 2 first-round picks. All right, next up, Jonathan Taylor, my other MVP candidate right now. For the Indianapolis Colts, rushing touchdowns, he's already in 3rd place with 15. 15 rushing touchdowns in 10 games. So he's averaging 1.5 a game. Jonathan Taylor already holds the record. He set it in 2021 with 18. So he only needs 3 more, which basically means in 2 games he should be able to tie his record. He's already had, I believe, 3 games with 3 touchdowns, so he could match it this week. The only other person between him and tying his own record is Lenny Moore, who in 1964 had 16 rushing touchdowns. So Jonathan Taylor, man, he's passed. Eric Dickerson was the last guy he passed. I mean, that's a great player right there. Edgar and James was on this list 3 times. Three years, Edgar and James had 13 rushing touchdowns. That's a model of consistency right there. All right, now for the defense, Myles Garrett for the Cleveland Browns. Despite how bad their season's been with only 2 wins, Myles Garrett has 15 sacks so far this season, 15 sacks in 10 games. So again, it's 1.5 sacks a game. He's already on this list in the second and third spot. This is when Myles Garrett is on the top 10 for the Cleveland Browns 5 times, 5 out of the 10 times. Anyway, right now he's in 6th with 15. Bill Glass in 1965 had 16.5. So he only needs 1.5 sacks to tie Bill Glass for first place, 2 to pass him. Unless something crazy happens, he'll definitely hold the record. This is a record. This list here, Myles Garrett's on it 5 times. Bill Glass is on it 3 times. Another player who was very consistent. I mean, Bill Glass in the 60s. This is way back in the 60s, had 15, 15.5, and 16.5. Now, by the way, the reason Bill Glass is on this is because I'm using the unofficial sack records. Officially, the sack records didn't start to 82. So if that was the case, Myles Garrett would have the top 5 spots because Jack Gregory, who's in 5th, is 1970. He's the other guy on this list. The only other one that would be on the list is Reggie Camp in 1984. But I don't consider them unofficial. And when I looked at the stat numbers on StatHead, they have the numbers from the 60s. And the reason I don't think that of them as unofficial is just because there have been people who have went through every video, every film, watched every game, looked at all the records, looked at all the things on every game from I think it's 1960 or 62, one of those, I can't remember, and looked at the stack numbers for the teams every game. So they've, just because somebody wasn't sitting there live at the game and recording it, it's still official. We see this all the time. If you're in fantasy football, you'll see a stat correction. A stat that was called one way in the game will be changed after the game. It's no different. So at some point, I do believe these unofficial, quote, sack records will be the official sack records. But anyway, either way, Myles Garrett at some point will be the number 1 sack leader for the Cleveland Browns. He's actually on a pace to put himself in the top 10 all time. Not quite there yet in the top 10 for this season. He's going to need a few more sacks to get up there. All right. Let's look 2 more records real quick, and then we'll call it a show. And that is teams. We're going to the teams, and we're going to get to the sack thing as well. But as far as scoring goes, last week, this has been a very topsy-turvy thing as points per game. 2 weeks ago, only one team was in the top 10 as far as 30 points plus a game. And then there was some high-scoring games, and the Seattle, 2 weeks ago that would have been. And then the Seattle Seahawks in week 10, the Detroit Lions had big games, pushed them over 30 points a game again. Now, after last week, where the scoring was not nearly as high, we're back to only the Indianapolis Colts with 32.1 points a game. They stayed where they were because they were on a bye week. Everybody else dropped under 30 points a game. In fact, severely. Dallas Cowboys actually went up, but they are now in second with 29.6 points a game. So we're talking a 2.5 point game, 2.5 point lead by the Colts right now as far as points per game. The only team, like I said, over 30. Seattle Seahawks dropped from 30.6 to 29.4. That's a point. And then Detroit Lions dropped even more, 31.4 points in week 10 down to 29.2. Over 2 points a game they dropped, and that's because of that terrible loss they had. I think they only scored like 9 points. It was pretty horrible. So those are your top teams right now. Indianapolis Colts will be back in play. We'll see how they do this week against the Chiefs. I do not expect to see them score 32 points against the Chiefs. I mean, they may win. I don't think they'll score 32, though. One last number we'll look at, and that is sacks by teams. This is going to change because of last night, but right now, Denver Broncos are first in sacks with 49 sacks. They have a big lead over the Atlanta Falcons, who have 34. Atlanta Falcons is the surprise on this list to me. I did not expect this. They had 5 more sacks last week in Week 11. They now have 34 to be in second place. I mean, in third, you knew the Denver Broncos would be there. And then in third is Pittsburgh Steelers, who have 33. They only had 1 sack last week, but they're in third with 33. You expect to see them there. Cleveland Browns were farther down the list. They were in 9th, but now they're in 5th. They had 5 sacks. They now have 32 to be in 5th. The team that's not on this list that will be when we look at it next week, Houston Texans. The top 10, when I have in 10th right now, you have 4 teams with 26 sacks. Going into Thursday night game, Houston only had 25 sacks. They had 8 more, so they're now up to 33. Well, that's going to jump them up to at least third place. I don't expect every team under them who's going to play this week to get enough sacks to get to 33. So Houston will be in the top 10 next week somewhere. We'll just have to see where. That's just shows you how good their game was. All right. We'll call that a wrap with that couple of those little tidbits there on the team stats. One positive for the offense and one positive for the defenses. All right. Hope you enjoy your Sunday of NFL football and Monday night as well. But Monday, I'll be back to talk about some of the Sunday games. We'll take a look at them. There's some huge games I can't wait to see. Just some, very important games coming up. Like I said, the Colts and the Chiefs, Steelers, the Bears. I mean, those are some top-notch matchups right there. Vikings and Packers. Those are some big games. Eagles and Cowboys. The Buccaneers and Rams. I mean, the Buccaneers have played the Patriots, the Bills, and now the Rams. There's 3 teams in a row that are very good teams. They've lost to the first 2. They lost to the Patriots and the Bills. They need to come back and somehow, though I don't actually honestly expect it, but Buccaneers need to beat the Rams, or else there's a possibility that the Carolina Panthers, another big game, Monday night game for the Panthers and the 49ers, that game could possibly put the Panthers in first place, depending on how the Buccaneers do. So that'll be fun to watch. But anyway, exciting game of football coming up on this Sunday. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. As always, you can find it on YouTube. If you want to watch the video, you'll see all the charts, my top 10 charts that I talk about. You'll see all that information there if you want to look at it. So just go to Just the Stats NFL on YouTube and you'll see that. Please subscribe and like, as I always say. And I appreciate you listening to this episode of NFL Top 10s for Friday. I'm out.